Good evening, everyone. I want to welcome everyone to the February the 7th, 2022 council meeting. But please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Does any member of council have a conflict of interest or an appearance of a conflict of interest in regards to any item on the agenda? If so, please state so at this time. Mr. Boardman?
No.
Mr. Nern?
No.
Mr. Corbett?
No.
Mr. Phillips?
Nope.
Mr. Hardgraves?
No.
All right. Moving on. Amendment and approval of the draft agenda. Does anyone have anything that needs to be amended?
No. Nothing for me. No.
Nobody?
No.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve the draft agenda?
So moved. Second.
Do I have any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Moving on next, we have the Sunset Vision dedication ceremony for Town Hall Plaque honoring Mr. Tom Bensons. Corbett, Mr. Nern.
We're going to come on down.
Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, come on down here. We're going to do this in two parts. We have many representatives of Sunset Vision here. They're a nonprofit volunteer group inside Sunset Beach. Tom Bensons was a member of that group. He was also a very prominent member of the community who served the town in capacity for a number of years. So what we'll do first is we have, on behalf of Sunset Vision, we have a plaque that we will give to the mayor honoring Tom Bensons, and it will be hung in the hallway prominently here in the town. So first we'll have presentation of the plaque. It's a proclamation that the town has prepared on behalf of Tom Bensons, and we are giving this to the mayor. And Charlie and I are both members of Sunset Vision, and so we're doing this on behalf of the town and on behalf of Sunset Vision. Give it to him.
Who's taking pictures?
Now, if we could have Joanne and Christopher come on up, please. If you would just stand in the middle there. We're going to present, we have a framed copy of the declaration, actually the original. What it says, a proclamation honoring the life and contributions of Thomas W. Bensons. Whereas Thomas W. Bensons was a citizen and resident of the town of Sunset Beach since 2009, and whereas Thomas W. Bensons served the town for numerous years by volunteering on various boards and committees, whereas Thomas Bensons was also very involved with community activities and events through his membership with Sunset Vision, including many of the activities that Sunset Vision has done, whereas Tom Bensons was conscientious of our fragile environment and estuaries, acknowledging the need for preservation, and he cared greatly for the aesthetics of the town. And whereas it was well known that Thomas W. Bensons loved Sunset Beach and all his many friends. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that we, the mayor, the town council of the town of Sunset Beach, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim and acknowledge that through his leadership, commitment, and community service, Thomas W. Bensons gave unselfishly of himself and his time to the betterment of the town of Sunset Beach. We are eternally grateful to him, and he will be greatly missed by all of us.
Thank you, everyone. For this part.
Thank you. Oh, and one small detail, the plate on the bottom of the plaque, which our member Ashley Buckwell designed and had made, this is from his name plaque for his service as chairman of the planning board. And it always sat up front during all of his meetings. So, and you take care of that.
again, ma'am, thank you on behalf of our town for allowing your husband to do all the stuff that he did do. I know it takes two. We appreciate every bit of it. Moving on now to the general council discussion. Does any member of council, anybody have anything? Go ahead, sir.
If I may, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
On January 10th meeting of the town council, John Corbett and myself were both, I guess we'd say we volunteered, right?
Volunteered.
For the Brunswick County Shoreline Protection Consortium. And this is just so everybody will know and the rest of the town board members will know, that this is made up of communities in Brunswick County who are positioned along the Atlantic coast. So it's representatives from each town, and also there are federal officials, state officials, county officials, and the Army Corps of Engineers. And so it's a group that meets quarterly up in Bolivia, and we sit down and talk about issues that are important to the coastal communities. It's a really great opportunity to hear what others are saying. And for example, at the first meeting, I gave a report on our dredging program. Debbie Smith from Ocean Isle Beach gave a report on their terminal groin, and people asked questions about that. So it's a really interesting group. It's a great way of communication, finding out what other communities around our area are doing. And I will look forward to serving on that committee. John was there also serving in the committee, and we look forward to doing that for the rest of this year. So, John, you want to add to that anything?
I think you covered that pretty well. Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else?
I have another one.
Go ahead, sir.
John Corbett and myself, and I know Chad also, attended the Offshore Wind for North Carolina presentation that was held in Southport. This was a presentation by groups in favor of offshore wind. In favor of offshore wind. John's going to talk about that in a minute. But the current area, and this is very important to people of Sunset Beach, the current area to be developed, and the federal government releases certain areas of the ocean where you may be able to build these windmills. And the current area to be developed is called the Wilmington East Offshore Wind Plan. The Wilmington East Offshore Wind Plan. And the location of that is important to us. It's off the coast of Holden Beach, it's off the coast of Oak Island, and it's off the coast of Bald Head Island. You know, the Sunset Beach is not mentioned. The number of windmills that are going to be there in that group is that going to have 122 windmills, the possibility, 122 windmills off the coast of those three areas. Now, Sunset Beach, you're wondering, what about Sunset Beach? Sunset Beach is in another offshore area wind plant. It's in another area. And that will not be developed probably, they said, for probably 10 years, at least 10 years. A moratorium will be put in effect by the federal government. They want to see how this first area that I just mentioned is going to work. And it's up to the federal government to make the decision to go in our area. But it's not going to be for at least 10 years is what they're saying. In the current plan, in this Wilmington East Offshore Wind Plan, the current plan, the closest windmill to Sunset Beach will be 19 miles away. 19 miles away. And part of the presentation was a visualization. And what they did is they set up views, pictures, and on easels, and you stood in a certain distance away, and it depicted if you were standing on Holden Beach, or standing on Oak Island, or standing on Bald Head Island, and you looked out to where the windmills would be, and the windmills would be approximately 14 miles away from shore there. And if you looked out from that area, could you see the windmills on a hazy day, hazy summer day, or a clear summer day? And really, John may agree with this, Chad may agree with this, I couldn't see them. I could not see the windmills at 14 miles. I know at Sunset Beach here we've talked about 25 miles at times, and there's been proclamations we've sent to the federal state governments regarding keep them at least 25 miles offshore. But what they're saying is at 14 miles, we won't even see them. And so that was a presentation by those in favor of windmills. But the big news for us is our area, it will not be developed, is not set to be developed until another 10 years. John, you want to add to that?
Just to clarify, we have a different licensing zone, and
That's
it
right.
will not be up, it appears it will not be up for licensing for another 10 years. And then it'll take time after that to develop it. This was an effort by the proponents of the wind farms to show that actually they're showing at a distance of 17 miles from the coast, you would not be able to see very much, if anything at all. And so what it was an effort to demonstrate and to address the concerns of the people like we had in Sunset Beach, where we've been saying we wanted them at least 25 miles away so that we couldn't see them at all. They're pointing out that actually it was 17 miles that they could not be seen. And with the modeling and the simulation that they used, that was it was pretty obvious that you couldn't see too much in that modeling. The concern that we had was this was purely an effort to show that you could see or would not be able to see the windmills when they're 800 feet high off the surface. However, what they didn't do was address some of the other issues. In the process of building, in the process of operation, what is the impact? What kind of decibel levels will they be operating at, and what will that have on the impact of the sea life and the bird life in the area? What would be the impact of the presence out there in terms of the bird and the fishing migration lands? And there's the transmission lines to get them from the offshore to the mainland. These lines would be conducting electricity, and it would be like having major power lines go through the area. So again, the impact there, what is the impact that they would have on the wildlife and nature out there? There was no discussion of the construction timeline. There was no discussion of what kind of impact the actual construction of these 800-foot high windmills would have, and what kind of foundations they would need to be put in there. So there's a lot of information that we still need to have. The key point that whole thing that should come across to us, though, is that for this current set of licensing, which they're supposed to give the licensing or award the licensing by about the end of May, I think.
End of May.
About the end of May. And it would be probably close to a 10-year process to get this first batch built. And it will be built in the West Wilmington licensing zone, which is pretty much out of our line of sight all the way through there. Mm-hmm. They also didn't talk about what kind of financial benefits it would have on our communities. They said a lot of money would be made, a lot of jobs would be made, a lot of natural energy would be provided, and that's the strong selling thing. But it didn't address what would happen to Brunswick County or to our community. Mm-hmm. And it also didn't address, and they didn't have any information on what's going on in South Carolina. I don't know if, do you know if they're...
The last I heard, while we're talking about this meeting,
Sure.
Sorry. The last I'd heard about this in South Carolina was they're actually probably about 10 years ahead of North Carolina in the process. So unlike North Carolina, where the people have been a little bit more hesitant to accept this, South Carolina is more along track of accepting it. So that's something that along our coast we need to be considerate of based on how the North Carolina state line boundary is as it runs offshore. Even if, let's say, they don't do this 10 years or start this process 10 years in North Carolina, in South Carolina, they have already begun the process and have done studies for geology and things like that. And so when you look at how the state line runs, they're going to be 10, 15 miles off our coast because they're not as steadfast about pushing them further offshore either. So it's something we need to consider as a town as well.
Yeah. And that's the main thing. We have to do some considering.
So is it a done deal? I mean, it's already said that that's
well, they'll be licensed.
Going to go forward.
I mean, the areas from West Wilmington that's off of Bald Head Island and north will be, they're part of the licensing that they will be awarding late spring. So looks like it. But the impact from that area on us would be very, very indirect, or so it appears at this time. But it's something for us to keep an eye on. Mm-hmm. That's it?
That's it.
Anyone else have anything?
Nothing?
Nothing.
All right, moving on next to our public comments on agenda items only. Do we have any at this time?
Mr. Mayor, is the consultant going to be here tonight?
Yes, he's here.
Okay,
Okay,
thank
All right.
you.
thank you. All right, nothing else. Moving on to our consent agenda. The November 1st, 2021 regular meeting minutes, November 9th, 2021 special meeting minutes, December 6th, 2021 first regular meeting minutes, December the 8th, 2021 special meeting minutes, December 14th, 2021 second regular meeting minutes, January the 10th, 2022 first regular meeting minutes, January 18th, 2022 second regular meeting minutes, Planning Department's December 2021 report, Building Inspection Department 21 report, December 2021 report, I apologize. Finance Department, December 2021 report, Fire Department, December 2021 report, Public Works, December 2021 report, and the Police Department 2021 department report. Does any member of council have any questions or anything that needs to be amended on these?
Mayor, if I could make
Go
a
ahead.
statement.
Yes,
I just
ma'am.
wanted to point out to everybody that the November minutes have an error. Actually, they have two errors. Mike Hargraves is listed in the roll call section and in all the motions. And the submitter is Katie's name instead of mine. This is a software issue that I'm working through with the minute maker company, and it'll be rectified before these are placed online.
I wasn't here. I was out there, but I wasn't here.
Anything else? Not, do I have a motion that we accept the consent agendas?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
If any member of staff would like to go home, you're more than welcome
Well,
to leave if you need to.
Well, you just did the minutes. We didn't talk about any of the departments. Or I
Just
missed
done
it,
it all
sorry.
in there together. Everything was together.
And Mr. Mayor,
Okay, I've got a question.
the next-
Sorry.
the next agenda item is for the department heads, for any department head that you have a question
In the
for.
current town
Right.
activities
Oh,
report,
mhm.
yes.
That's what the current,
Right.
All right, moving on to the current town activities report. Mr. Corbett, go ahead with your question.
does anybody else have any questions?
Go ahead.
Okay, Planning Department. At this last meeting, could you talk us through what permits you approved?
Planning board meeting. It's just
Planning Board meeting, yeah.
Alan is, yeah, there we go. Planning board, we had a signed text amendment go through. It was tabled for a second time. It would be brought back to staff to re-look at and then bring it back for the planning board in March, to eventually schedule a public hearing to come before y'all, hopefully in April. And then the other one was a major site development plan that was approved for a 9,100 square foot retail center, with 3 lease units in between Dollar General and the Outfitter store.
Okay, so that's approved and they're ready to go.
Yep.
Does that mean they already have their stormwater and they have
So they'll have to go
roads,
through.
electricity and stuff
So
like that?
they'll have to seek driveway permits through NCDOT and a state stormwater permit or modify what's out there now
So,
with Brunswick County and the state.
so we approve their permits for them, even though the stormwater is not done, and the
So
roads
because
haven't been taken care of.
because the UDO does not specifically state that a state stormwater permit is required, nor an NCDOT permit is required, they're still required. They're with the requirements with outside agencies such as DOT and state and Brunswick County stormwater, but that is not. It's looked at, but not the basis of approval by our UDO.
So can they start their
No.
work getting ready to build
I
their
mean,
development and stuff?
They haven't submitted architectural drawings to carry yet for a building permit. So that's another step in the process. They have zoning approval, but they don't have building approval.
What about prepping the land and
No, not
They
yet.
can't do
they
any
have
of that?
to. They have to submit a permit for that. I mean, technically you could start the process without DOT or state stormwater, but you're going to be in violation most likely of them. And the state agencies can come down a whole lot harder on people than the town of Sunset Beach can. And the developer, I mean, it's the same way when you approve final plat for subdivision or preliminary plat for subdivision, they go through the same thing. Potentially DOT permits and stormwater permits.
Do they at any point have to demonstrate to the town that they've met all the stormwater requirements and all the NCDOT requirements?
Normally, they send me a copy of the state stormwater permit once it's finalized, along with the DOT permit once it's finalized as well.
Okay. I mean, just excuse me if I'm taking too long on this. When the communications tower out by Colony and Regency, one of the stipulations that the Board of Adjustment made was that the stormwater would be taken care of. So,
Correct.
I mean, I'm just as an example.
Correct.
So they can't do anything at all until the stormwater is taken care of. That's correct?
Are we talking about the retail center or the telecommunications tower?
As I switched to the communications tower.
So my understanding with the telecommunications tower is that they are working the leasing of the telecommunication tower. So the applicant is working with the landowner to rectify whatever is in violation with their state stormwater permit. Before the telecommunication tower could be constructed, that my understanding with DOT or state stormwater that would have to be out of violation or rectified with the state stormwater permit to be able to be constructed. Where they are in that process, I'm not sure. I reached out to the applicant about a month ago and talked to state stormwater back in November, October. And they sent me what was going on out there, but I haven't got any update as far as from the applicant of where they are in the process of constructing that facility.
Would we in the town be, I mean, it sounds like you're actively watching to make sure they don't start constructing until they got everything taken care of.
Again, and they've got to pull a building permit through Cary. So there's an additional permit requirement on the building side of it for the retail center and the communications tower to seek as well, because the architectural drawings have not been submitted for either one.
Okay, so that clears up.
So all they have is zoning approval. They don't have any kind of building approval for either facility.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Chad,
Yes, sir.
just out of curiosity, going back to the retail construction, you don't have any idea what kind of businesses?
All I know is retail. I asked the applicant, who is Mr. Richard Jordan, what would be going in there. I know you'll have a bigger lease kind of center in the middle. I have no idea what would go in there. And then two individual smaller ones on the bookends of it. He told me retail. But again, when those uses come in, because they'll be upfitted, I think specifically for those uses, or at least one of them will be upfitted for a specific use. Don't know what that use is. And then the individual uses will be determined at a later date. They'll have to conform to Article 6 in the UDO, which is table of permitted uses.
Thank you.
Can I ask one question too, Chad?
Sure.
I like what you did at the planning board meeting the other day when you explained to the planning board that certain things, like you were just explaining to John, are sort of out of your purview. You can't, certain things you just can't, like stormwater, for example, DOT, for example.
Correct.
That's between the developer and DOT, developer and Demlar, and so on.
Correct.
But what you did do the other day was you put some notes on somewhere. Was it your approval or something? You put some notes on there to remind yourself and probably remind a developer, these are things we're concerned about.
So two things. One, in the TRC process, which is a process that goes through the department heads and provides comments back to the applicant before it ever gets to the planning board. Those comments are addressed. I send those out to agencies such as Brunswick County Stormwater, Brunswick County Engineering, Water and Sewer, since it's their facility that they're tapping into. Mm-hmm. NCDOT and State Stormwater, DCM, CAMA, just see if there's anything. Mm-hmm. I work with those people pretty closely. We have good contacts, good relationships, not just because I work here, but when I've worked in other places. Okay. Those are addressed and those are sent to them. The planning board made a motion to accept that unanimously
Mhm.
with 2 notes. It was
That's
a
right.
recommendation. It was not a condition upon approval, which
Right.
there's a lot of differences with that.
That's right.
One of them being a recommendation, hey, would you be willing to do this? One of them being for electric cars, having charging stations in the parking lot.
Mhm.
Again, our UDO does not cover that, does not talk about it, does not require it. And then straightening out the sidewalk
Mhm.
to go straight instead of around, which could be problematic because you have BEMC who has electric there and electrical boxes right there.
Mhm.
So all those in the right of way and coming off of a state highway or state road provide some challenges where you have to work with outside agencies. Town of Sunset Beach also has a specific inquiry, I guess, with DOT on that one because of how they have it hashed out in the road.
Right.
To make sure they don't hash that out in front of one of our streets. So we will be reaching out to DOT. I have not heard back. I've sent DOT emails. I know they're busy. I've worked with Caitlin Marks, who is pretty high up there, and she's the one that represents us on RPO and the GSATs as far as what's in STIP reports and what's coming on. So she works very closely. She recommended me getting them to a specific representative, and I'm waiting on comments back from DOT on that as well. So I'll forward them to the applicant. Basically, I'm providing that service to the applicant because I'm very much wanting to be in the know of what happens that as well. Another instance that I did this was for Jaguar's Lair is with the TIA because of how many in and out traffic trips that it will generate with that many homes going in there.
The bottom line is here that some issues came up with the planning board, which I thought were great issues.
Yes.
And they were notes, 2 notes are put on. The third note I wish was put on was for the DOT about turning left into a Station Trail. That they're turning right. One way or the other might not be possible if they went with the drawings that are there now.
I know one of the things that is becoming popular with DOT is doing right out and right in only. What they will do with that now that you have 3 essentially commercial going through on that, but you also with our overlay district, you'll have connectivity between the outfitter store, the new retail space, the Dollar General, which I think dumps out on that side road. I don't remember the name of it, but
Well, the idea is
Station Trail.
hopefully you'll keep them in mind that we don't want that. We'd like to have cars going both ways turning into Station Trail.
And I mean, it really comes down to, I don't get a lot of leeway with DOT. If that's what they want to do, that's what they're going to do.
But
So
you can put some pressure on them.
I can
Yes,
talk
that's
to them
what-
and try to figure out what's going on.
It's
I
like
know-
we can't deal with the roads
Correct.
around here, the state roads, but we can put pressure on the state to do something.
Correct.
So that's the whole thing here.
Because it comes down again between the applicant and DOT, and it's
That's right.
also up to the applicant to pay for
That's right.
those improvements as they seem.
But it's good that we're standing there
Yeah.
and saying, hey, here's what we'd like you to do.
Correct.
Because when they all leave, they're all done building, we're left with what is there. And if it's a road where you can't turn right, left, or everywhere, we're going to get the blame, right? Let's
Correct.
make sure it's done right. We
Yeah.
can. That's good. That's
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you.
I don't have any more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chad. Anyone
Thanks,
else?
Chad.
Anyone
Thanks,
else have anything? All right, if not, moving on to the town administrator report. Go ahead, Ms. England.
Thank you, Mayor, and you can turn the department heads loose.
Okay, any department heads want to leave? All right, go ahead, Ms. England.
Okay. I am super pleased to announce that as of March 1st, Tara Drop, who is now Tara Nichols, will be rejoining the town staff full-time. Let's see. Beach Patrol, code enforcement. This is something that we all talked about at the last meeting between Paul and Ken and I, just to get a feel for if the town would be interested in more patrols happening on the island. And you said you were and that you would consider it. So we have had 3 or 4 meetings since then trying to figure out, trying to come to a conclusion that would solve our problems that we're having on the beach strand. And basically we have come to the realization that there's really not a solution. What we're doing now is really all that we can do, and hiring additional police officers is not going to solve it. So the three of us are not making any recommendation for additional hires at this point. Ken is dedicated and committed to making sure that the employees that you all did allow us to hire last year specifically for the beach will be over there, and they will be patrolling, and they will be on the strand periodically and when necessary. And with them being staying on the island, they'll be able to get there faster than if they were coming from Sandpiper Bay or somewhere on the mainland.
Does the beach patrol people have communications with the police patrol that will be out on the island?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they have radios as well. Planning board, Chad didn't speak to it, but I will. The planning board is starting the UDO audit and rewrite project this month. They are dedicating a second meeting each month to just this agenda item. No other agenda items will be, and that will be help me, Katie, third Thursday. I think it's the third Thursday. Pete, is that right? And those will be put out on YouTube as well. Old Georgetown Road, if you'll remember, you all did a resolution asking for DOT to do a study on the speed limit and for the consideration of a traffic signal at the intersection of Clubhouse Road and Old Georgetown Road. Dustin and I did hear from DOT this week, and they are not in agreement that the speed limit should be reduced. Their study did not give them indications that there were speed problems out there. So they did not endorse the speed limit reduction. However, they do agree that a traffic signal is needed at Clubhouse Road and Old Georgetown Road. Unfortunately, they don't have any money. So they are going to go ahead and do the design and the construction estimates and get all that done by early spring. And we'll all be looking for funding opportunities, including DOT has some places that they can go, as well as GSTATS, the Grandstand Area Transportation Study that we are a member of, has funds available for projects. So, John, will you talk to them about that?
Or Jamie will.
Or one of you. Oh, y'all switched. Sorry.
Yeah.
Just
one question on the speed limit.
Mm-hmm.
They did the speed limit survey around November, December, January.
Yes,
Yeah.
and they are coming back in the summer.
Are they going to come back in the summer and do it again?
Yes, they are.
Because you get a different world out
Yes,
there at that time.
And I provided them, Chief Claymore got a report together for all the accidents that have been on all the intersections on Georgetown Road from 2012 to 21 or 22, I think. And I did provide that to DOT as well.
Good. But the big thing is they will do it again this summer.
Yes.
When it's busy. Okay.
Yes.
So it's not a dead issue at this point.
Yes, they will.
Okay. Thank you.
Just to let everybody know, the parking lot next door is basically completed. We are just waiting for Brunswick Electric to come and install the lighting. Once that occurs, that parking lot will be open to the public to be able to park over there. If the front parking and the back parking back here is all taken up, you'll be able to park over there and walk in the front door, just as if we were open.
Well, we can't do that now.
Well, you can, but it's dark.
Okay.
But the sidewalks are in, everything's there. We're just waiting on the lights. And then the landscaping will go in the spring. Two more things. The 4th Street paving petition that you have in your packet, Dustin and I talked to Michael Norton, who is our engineer, about the upfront cost that you all will incur before you get to the resolution of undertaking this project. And it's a little expensive, even more so than I let y'all know last week. To get a preliminary rough estimate, you're looking at about $3,000. But if you want a more definitive cost, they're going to have to do surveys, borings, engineering, design, permitting, and you're looking at about 47,000 for that. So when you get to that agenda item, just keep that in mind, so you can tell me which way you want to go. That makes sense?
That's before
Well-
paving.
That's before paving. That's just to get us to the construction drawings for them to go out for bid for paving.
And do the people on the street pay that eventually?
Yes.
Or is the town,
Yes, the street is
the street picks
assessed.
up, and do the
Mhm.
people on the street know that?
They 21 or however many percentage of the petitions. I think there's 40 properties along that street and 22 petitions were in
Yeah.
favor.
Yeah.
So that's the majority.
But I mean, do they know of the additional cost besides just the paving cost?
They will.
Okay.
Now, what happens if they say, we don't want to do it anymore?
Well, that's up to you all to
All right.
make that decision once you get.
All right.
So normally in the past, what the council has done is done the preliminary rough estimate for a couple of $1,000s. And then do the resolution undertaking the project, public hearing is held, those property owners and whoever can come and make comments. And then at that point, you either adopt the resolution directing us to undertake the project, or you don't.
Okay.
At that point. But you're only out that time a couple of $1,000s at that point.
But you're saying this time,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
this time we're going to have to pay the upfront cost of surveying at about the 47,000?
No, that will be included in the overall cost.
package. Okay.
Right.
So
47,000 or 4,700?
47,000 to get to construction design where they're ready to go to bid.
We could do it for 10.
Last thing I've got, the agenda item that we added tonight, the current town activity report. It came to me after I had put this on the agenda for you all to ask the department heads any questions that you wanted. I was remembering back to the reasoning that these department reports are so late, because they're basically 60 days old when you're getting them for the first time. And I recalled that a couple of town administrators ago wanted to capture a month, an entire month in a report. So that was the cause for the delay, because the packets, with you beating the first Monday of the month, the packets go out pretty much the last week of the month. So they weren't getting complete reports. So I thought for you all to consider, in order for you all to be able to get accurate reports quickly, if you would consider moving the department head reports to the second meeting of the month, then you would have within 2 weeks of current data from your department heads. So that's just something for you all to consider. And just let me know however you want to do that, or if you want to try it and see what happens. I don't need a motion or anything, because the mayor and I set the agenda. So however, whatever your feelings are on that.
Well, you could change the scope from 1 month, from the first to the last, to a half from 1 month to a half from the second month.
Yeah, we could do that. I think that would be more confusing for the department heads
Yeah.
as they're trying to do the reporting.
I don't have a problem with trying it, seeing if it works out. And if we can get the information to us faster, then we're just more on top of things that way.
it's nice to have the historical stuff, but I think
I agree.
most of my questions and most of the questions I hear from the community are about things that are happening
Right now. Right.
And that's
Right.
Yeah, that's fine.
So you want me to try that for
Sure.
Yeah.
well,
March.
we'll start it in March, because the February meeting, we're going to look at doing it differently anyway. The last thing I have is I'll be out of the office on Thursday and Friday of this week, and Tara and Carrie will be manning the town.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Lisa.
Nothing else. We're
Yes,
moving
sir.
on to the old business,
One,
the
two,
dredging project update and scope of work calls for the next phase. Mr. Sam Morrison.
Mayor and council members, thanks for inviting us here to give you a brief update. Want to go to the second slide? A brief update about the current ongoing South Jinks Creek dredging project, also the Bay Area realignment and permit modification, and then the Bay Area feeder channel and Marys and Turtles Creek scope of work. We're going to talk a little bit about the scope of work, but the actual cost and scope is going to come later this week with a rough order of magnitude of cost of the project to allow you guys to make an informed decision on moving forward on the project. And then finally, we'll open it up for comments or questions. The next slide, please. Just want to go back to the beginning. I know some of this is a repeat, but the dredging contractor came in late November and started dredging on December 4th. They started in the bend near the Bay Area on December 4th. They had some mechanical problems right away, but yet brought some other equipment to aid their progress. Through December, they started, as I said, in the bend at station 5950. Next slide. And then they moved on heading east towards Tubbs Inlet. And by the end of December, after taking 3 days off for Christmas, they had reached station 6472, which is about 522 feet of progress, which equates to about 30% of the overall project by the end of December. Next slide. In January, they continued heading east, and were making good progress, and they got to station 6550, at which point the contractor did its first survey of the channel, and that was for a pay estimate. And based on that survey, we noticed that there were issues with the dredge contractor not maintaining some of the dredging tolerances that were prescribed in the contract documents. So we immediately notified the agencies of dredging outside these tolerances, and we put in some corrective actions for the contractor, which the corrective actions were taken. And from their next surveys, there was marked improvement on meeting the tolerances that were prescribed within the contract. So, and also in January, as we talked at the beginning of the project, they had mechanical issues. The booster went down. They reinstalled the booster. That has helped their production. So through the end of January, they dredged about 1,100 feet of the 1,750 foot of channel, which is approximately 63% complete.
Is that shown in green?
Yes.
Green is what has been dredged?
Green is what has been dredged, correct. So they've actually, if you can look on the map, they came in the bend right by the Bay Area channel. They went to the east, made it to the end in January at approximately, I believe it was around January 27th or 28th, they made it to the end. And then they went back to the bend and started heading north from South Jinks Creek. And that's what it shows here, that they've gone to the north now from the bend. The contractor then performed the pay estimate survey number 2 of the additional eastern end of South Jinks Creek and a small portion of the area from the bend heading north. And those were done on the 31st of February and the 31st of January and the 3rd of February, and those are currently under review. End of February, the contractor continued dredging through the first week and made it all the way to station 56, which is about 500 feet from the completion of the project going to the north. Unfortunately, this happened through, the 4th of February. Unfortunately, the Corps of Engineers issued a stop work order to the contractor on last Friday, the 4th. And this was given concerns of staying within the dredging tolerances on the project. We've reviewed surveys of the area that was of concern and maybe a misperception on where the dredging was occurring. Based on the surveys and the data we have, there's no issue with dredging outside the permitted channel. We are, currently in coordination with the Corps and the state, DCM, and provided them all the data to show that the dredging has been within the permitted channel, and we're hoping to get back to work tomorrow.
So have they sent somebody down to look?
No, what we've done is there's actual physical surveys that are done, hydrographic surveys, and it shows where the dredging has occurred. We've taken that data along with the permit data, permit application, and where the permitting was allowed or permitted, provided that all back to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and DCM, showing where it was allowed, showing where the material has been removed, and it's under review by them right now. And hopefully once they review it, everything will be back to work.
But did they
Where-
see that data before they issued the work stoppage order?
No, they had not.
So they were basing that on what?
Community concern of it looking like it was much closer to areas than what they thought should be.
Okay.
So what was the area that the dredgers supposedly were dredging that we're saying they weren't there?
It's at the far east. If you want to go back 2 slides or one slide, I guess. It's at the far east end towards Tubbs Inlet of South Jinks Creek.
The dredging stops basically at the beginning of Palm Cove, right?
Correct.
And it doesn't go into there.
Correct.
Okay.
Right there.
And they haven't gone in there and they haven't dredged in there.
Based on the survey we've been provided, no, they have not. Now, one of the things that we've talked to the town administrator about, Lisa, is we're going to hire an independent surveyor to go back out and check on. I mean, the contractor, per the contract, is required to supply and provide an independent registered North Carolina land or surveyor to do the surveys and provide it to us, and that's our ability to QC. Just to take it one step further, we're going to hire through the town another independent surveyor to go and survey everything that's been done to verify what the contractor's independent surveyor has been giving us to make sure no material has been removed from outside the permitted areas.
Yeah. So basically, we are not dredging in that area directly north of Palm Cove. We do have equipment out there. We have pipes out there.
Correct.
But the vehicles and the equipment that's out there are not dredging. And
Correct.
It's
There
not
was
digging in that area.
For a period, there was a dredge that was sitting out just north of Palm Cove.
Yeah.
That was being utilized as a booster, but I don't think you'll ever see any photos or anything of this dredge with the ladder or the cutter head in the water
The
engaged.
cutter head was out of the water.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
So.
And that was the case when the Corps of Engineers did come down for a site visit, and they were using that booster and saw the situation. And we pointed out exactly the system and how it was working.
Yeah. So from our point of view, there's no basis to the complaint that was lodged by the homeowners association there.
Not that we can see at this point. Again, we're going to get an independent surveyor, but all the information we have from the contractor and what we've seen, no, there's no indication, and we've provided that data back to the Corps of Engineers and DCM to show them that everything has been within the permitted, through what was permitted through the permit application.
Yeah. Just a dummy question. Dustin, did you ever sit out there with the dredgers and point out and say, this is the in line right here? Because it's very clear. I mean, it's very clear where it stops. So okay. Good.
And from a standpoint of the surveys, the surveys are done both perpendicular to the channel and parallel with the channel. They're required to do one on each toe and in the center line. And because of the shoaling that has happened down near Tubbs Inlet, it'll be a very defined line where the contractor stopped at the end from surveys.
Thank you.
Yep. So as I said, we're working to resolve the issue. Hopefully tomorrow. The information was sent to the Corps and DCM this afternoon, so we'll get up with them first thing in the morning and hopefully get the contractor back to work. And based on the recent production rates, they're making about 30 foot of travel down the channel a day. They've got around 500 feet left to go. So if you do the math, it's 16, 17 days. But the contractor has had some issues with their barge offshore flipping over a couple times and those kind of things, and that does take time. So we're assuming comfortably that within 30 days he could be finished.
Other than the barge flipping, have they had any other problems out in the near shore placement area?
No. Again, we do turbidity monitoring. The contractor does turbidity monitoring, grabs samples of the material placed on the near shore bar area, has those analyzed, and to date, everything's passed. Everything's been within the permit requirements.
How often is that done?
It depends on if they're working. When they're physically working, turbidity monitoring is done 3 times a day.
Wow. Okay.
And then the sand samples, again, if they're working, it's usually 3 times a week samples are taken from the area they're actually physically discharging in. But there's a lot of times that they may not work for a couple of days, so you'll see a lot of weeks that there's only 2 samples, sand samples, and then those are sent to a lab for evaluation, and the results are given back to us. And all this information is posted on the town's website.
Thank you.
Next slide, please. Just a quick update on the Bay Area realignment permit modification. Last time we really talked about this, we said there was a moratorium on the 401 water quality certification. Well, since then it's been lifted by the Corps of Engineers. So they've issued, or we've received the 401 water quality cert at this point. Now we're just waiting on the Corps of Engineers, and once the Corps of Engineers is issued, DCM can issue. We're hoping, based on what we've heard, is within the next couple of weeks that we should receive those modifications. That's important to know, just because in order to do the next step, we need to have that permit modification in hand in order to submit another permit modification to move forward for the other dredging project. And just as a note that we've also started conversations with, NCDWR to modify the grant application for this change in scope to make sure it falls under what we're trying to do, and we can get reimbursed for it as well. Next, please.
At what point do we know that they are comfortable and will continue the grant?
We have to give them a scope change request. And I don't know, he didn't really say, but I can't imagine it's going to take too long, hopefully a month or so to, but we owe them some information once we finalize and get the approval to move forward to get that information back from them. And in our initial conversation, we did find out that when we do make the scope change, we can also make a cost change. So if we think this is going to be a little bit more, we can apply for that as well. Next slide. Nope, you're already there. Sorry. Back. So for the we'll call it the remainder of the navigation system project, the Bay Area Feeder Canal System, Marion, Turtles Creek. What the plan is to move forward now is to convert the project to a hydraulic dredging project. What that basically will entail is putting out 2 construction contracts. The first is to remove material from the USAC disposal island. Part of the requirements of the disposal island is to remove an equal or more amount of material that you're going to place in the island. Second one then is the hydraulic dredging of the remaining channels and canals. As I said earlier, this week I will have in your hands for your consideration on their next council meeting the scope and fees for the engineer, and also a rough order of magnitude of the cost of this project. We basically have that done, but we just are waiting on some subcontract costs to finalize our scope and fees. We've also, again, begun, this is kind of a continuation, but begun the conversation with NCDWR on modifying the grant application to make sure it falls under the grant. And as I said before, it was the importance of the current permit modification. We have to submit a new modification, and that can't be done until we have the current one approved and in hand. Next slide, please.
before you, the removal of the dry material, does the Corps of Engineer have any flexibility in saying, no, there's plenty of space there, you don't need to remove it? Or is this an absolute decision on their part?
So, I don't know how much detail you would like me to get into this, but we've had 5, 6 conversations with the Corps, asking them every potential angle we can think of to try to get them to allow us to use the disposal island without removing an equal amount of material, even to the point where we offered to build, not to have to remove material from the island, but to build the dikes up to their full capacity right now, or moving it to another side or something to create capacity. They view it as, whether it's there or not, kind of that airspace is potential capacity, and we cannot take any of their capacity according to the easement. Based on new guidance, there was a issue in the Galveston district, which created 2017 new guidance on use of Corps of Engineers disposal islands, which this is a workaround according to the Corps' legal team for the Wilmington district, is allowing them to allowing potential non-federal contractors or non-federal entities to use the sites to remove the material, because then you're not taking up capacity. So we've honestly tried everything we can and asked every way we could to come up with a different method. And in fact, it's even a little worse than that. I say worse than that, is they not only make you remove the amount of material you're going to place in, but it started out that they were going to make you remove 150% of the amount of material you're going to put in. But we've had some conversations, and through our talking through them with them, we've got that down to 120%. But in the future, if you continue to use capacity at the site, anything you don't use is carried over. So, yeah, it's a good question.
Thank you.
Believe me, we've thought about it a lot and no success. So the intent is for this hydraulic project is for the town to use what is referred to as disposal area 310. It's a long disposal island along the AIWW just east of North Jinks Creek. It's shown on this map here. There's a procedure that the Corps of Engineers is required to allow us to gain use of these sites, and it's to obtain 2 different consent agreements. And the first consent agreement is to remove the material on the island currently, and the second consent agreement is, once you've removed the material, then for the placement of your dredge material. Now, because we're on a tight time frame, we have, through our conversations, had them preliminarily agree that based on the disposal island, and it has a natural berm through the middle of it, but they're going to allow us to start removing material. If we're not finished with the removal of material by the time the dredging window opens, we're going to start placing material in the other half, and let us continue to remove material so we don't have to do this in series. I mean, we can do the work in parallel. So on this map, you can see the intent is we're going to remove the material from the east side of the island and place some material on the west side. So there's 2 consent agreement process. And as I talked about, we have to remove an equal amount of material. Next slide, please. So one of the advantages of this is when we do remove the material from the island, it's going to go to disposal area off of Old Georgetown Road. It will be dry material that will be removed from the island. It's going to have some consistency to it. So the movement of the material will be a much cleaner operation. So it'll still have to be hauled across the AIWW and placed into trucks and then trucked from the offloading site all the way to Georgetown Road. There's also a couple other things that need to be done. The site will need to be immediately cleared and grubbed so that we can do surveys as part of the first consent agreement. And then also, once we start to remove material, we have to think about there's going to have to be repairs to the current dike system and the outfall or the water outlet structure, the outfall structure, before it's put into use. Next slide, please. This is just, everybody knows, obviously, this contract here, what we're trying to accomplish here is the Turtles and Mary's Creek, and then the finger feeder canals in the Bay Area Channel. So one of the things we're going to have to do, a couple of things we're going to have to do prior to the dredging contract is we're going to have to redo hydrographic surveys of the channels so the Corps understands how much material we plan on placing into the disposal islands. And there's also some updated chemical testing of the soil that has to be done prior to placement. The Corps has to approve the chemical analysis of the materials that are going to be placed into the disposal island. Just as a fact I'd put in there is the last time Turtles and Mary's Creek. Slide, please. So finally, it's hard to read, so I gave you a copy, a little larger copy of the schedule. This is basically a list of the items in the schedule that is out there that I wanted to show how we can accomplish this by this next dredging season. There's obviously, one of the things I don't have on here is the acceptance by the council of moving forward for the engineer, but that'll be open for consideration, hopefully your next meeting. I hate putting schedule out here with some uncertainties right now with the permitting agencies, but we have to have a target to shoot for. And I think we've put conservative times in there for those to make this happen. So, the first order of work is the permitting and everything that goes with that, preparing and submitting another permit modification with additional permit drawings. And it's also going to have to involve any permits that are required for the use of the disposal island, which is something that we're working through right now. We've given them 120 days for permit approval. So the hope is to have a new application, have the permit modification that we currently have back in our hands by the end of this month, have a new permit application in by the end of next month. And then for the material remover from the disposal island, there's quite a few requirements for the consent agreements from the Corps of Engineers. So it kind of listed those through there in a time frame of what we need to do with that. And then finally, and I don't have the material removal ending until the end of December, so the end of the year. So it's going beyond when the dredging started. The dredging I have shown starting, even though it can start at the beginning of October, I'm just showing it starting November 1st right now. We might try to improve upon that, but I'm not sure how far the Corps will let us start placing depending on how much material we removed, because they're going to never want us to get ahead of what's been removed from the disposal island. And I'm just showing that the dredging can be finished in February of 23. So, and with that, that's all I have for an update right now. Like I said, we'll have you a package later this week for consideration.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you, Sam. Wow.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to new business. 4th Street paving request petition certification, Miss Anglin.
Thank you, Mayor. As I said in my report, this is where you all need to give me direction on how far involved you want to get with this before we set the resolution and hold the public hearing. So you're looking at 3,000 or 47,000.
would hope everybody'd say 3,000.
Don't question
If
my
they don't, I'm gonna be real disappointed.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. So we figure out what the
Yeah, I
cost
mean, let's
is.
see what it's gonna be first before we go to any.
I have a question, Lisa.
Mhm.
We put out the 3,000, and when the final cost comes up, some of those homeowners that have agreed back out. Did we get our money back from them?
No.
3,000 then.
I just need a motion.
I move the council direct the town administrator to obtain an estimate of the total cost for the project, limited to $3,000.
I have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Moving on next will be our American Rescue Plan Special Revenue Fund Resolution. Ms. Tara Nichols is not here, so Ms. Anglin, you'll have this one.
This is the first of the two things that you all need to approve before we can start the discussions on how you want to use this money. And she has basically just telling you that we need to set up this special revenue fund, which is where the monies will be housed, so that the reporting mechanism of this money can be easily maintained and reported. So that's the first thing you need to do, is just adopt this resolution setting up the special fund.
Do I have a motion that we adopt the resolution to create the Special Revenue Fund for the American Rescue Plan Act?
So moved.
Have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on next is our American Rescue Plan, the Grant Project Ordinance. Again, this would have been Ms. Drop. Ms. Lisa, you got this one?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
This is the ordinance, just like the dredging has its own ordinance. I can't remember what else has its own ordinance, but this is where the revenues will be placed, and this is where the expenditures will come from. It will not be intermingled with general fund. And this again makes the reporting much easier.
Do I have a motion to adopt the Grant Project Ordinance for the American Rescue Plan Act funds?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
When do we start getting discussion about what we can do with this money and what we're going to do with it?
That's one of the reasons that we're asking you to move this meeting, the February 15th meeting, to the 25th, so that she will be here and we can start those conversations at that point during the planning. And then just for everybody's knowledge, if they haven't kept up, the town was awarded $1,286,581.58, of which we have received $643,290.79 so far.
Did we put that in an interest-bearing account?
I'm sure she did.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Moving on, consider moving the 2/15/22 meeting to 2/25/22. Does any member of council have any problem with that?
I would say have the meeting, but I have a personal family problem issue that's come up, and I will not be here.
Okay.
I'll be out of town.
Any other council member? Not, do I have a motion that we'll change the meeting from 2/15/22 to 2/25/22?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Moving on, discussion and approval of the 22-23 budget calendar. I take it that all council members have looked over this and checked it with their schedules. Do we need any corrections here?
As best as can be determined now.
So-
Again, I will not be here on the 25th, but that's okay.
Wow.
I'll share my views.
All right. Other than that, do I have a motion that we will do the 2022-23 budget calendar as marked on our papers?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next up is our Depositions of Directives. Since we've moved the meeting to the
Can I
25th now, go ahead, sir.
one alibi? Go ahead. Could you point out and emphasize what this is and let us know whether you're going to put it on the email out to everybody?
Sure. In the council's packet is the budget suggestion form that Tara developed last year for the public to be able to give input to the council on items that they would like to see the council consider when they're coming up with this budget. This form is actually on the website already in the general online forms section, general tab is where it's located. It's there now.
Yeah. Could you still do a mass email with this as a PDF attached to it?
I can.
That would
Mhm.
actually make it more likely somebody will do something with it, or at least see it.
I can do that.
Any more questions?
And
All
I'll
right,
include the budget calendar in that email as well, so they'll know when those meetings are happening also.
thank you. Moving on now, the disposition of directive for our February 15th, which will actually be changed to the 25th. All three things that are on there at this time will be changed to the 25th unless someone comes up with something different. Do we have anything else that needs to be added?
Dredging.
All right, we'll put that
We'll
on the
have the scope of
25th.
work. Mhm.
Okay.
And you all, when you sat down tonight at your positions, you were given this, which is the COVID-19 draft that Jamie and Tom have worked on for you all to review in advance of that meeting.
Do we have anything else?
If you have any questions about that, just ask, because
Okay.
this was a rework of what had been proposed by
Yes.
the former administrator.
Anything else? If not, moving on to our next section, public comments. Does anyone have any public comments this time?
Rich Serrato, 517 Twisted Oak Lane. I was hoping to get the cost tonight for the hydraulic program for the other areas. I'm hoping the town, when the consultant arrives next month, will put how much this program has cost and what the per plat cost will be. If I ever submitted a project without knowing the cost, my MIT students and my administration would have had my tail. I'm not a stakeholder in this, at least I don't think so. But there are stakeholders who are going to be paying a lot of money, a lot more than what was anticipated, and they don't have a clue. And I blame all of you for that. The last estimate I did was based on a mechanical dredging was nearly $20,000 per plat. I submitted the current cost and the estimated cost to the town. Never got an answer. So I hope this council has the foresight to put the numbers on the board, what we expended so far, including legal cost, and all of the other cost, and what the estimated cost will be for this program. And this should also include the maintenance cost, the mandatory maintenance cost afterwards. You haven't done it, because I think you're fearful to do it. Unless you folks get another grant, this is going to cost the people a lot of money. And the perception is in the town is that it's going to be so expensive that everybody's going to have to pay for it. Prove me wrong. The cover-up is over. It's over. And you're accountable to the people. Not to me, to the taxpayers. And you've created another problem. It's called apathy.
Mr. Go ahead. You good? You finished?
I'm
No,
finished.
Go ahead. Are you finished?
Well, I'm just about to.
Yeah, that's what I didn't know if you was turning around. That's what I was saying.
No.
Go ahead.
You've created another problem. It's called apathy. Think about why you created that.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, wait a minute. Now I want to address something. You sent me an email. I'm not going to read it because it talked about people's names and all that, and I know that ain't what's supposed to go in. But I did speak to Lisa. When you asked me the questions you asked me on there about finding out about the stuff, I spoke to Lisa. She's in the process of doing. I spoke to the lawyer. They both are trying to find out everything that you've asked. So it's not that I have not done anything. Second of all, you asked, who am I trying to protect, the attorney or the counsel? I'm not protecting anybody but the citizens of this town is the only people I'm trying to protect. I'm not up here. Everybody else is on their own.
I never accused.
Third of all, sir, I'm talking. I'll let you talk. Please let me talk because I'm always respectful to you.
Go right ahead.
Okay? Third of all, you said, what am I trying to cover up? I'm not trying to cover up anything, sir. I am going with the facts that I get, that I read over. That is what I read, and that is what I report on. That is what I go at. Fourth, you said, who am I trying to protect? The only person, again, that I'm trying to protect is the people of Sunset Beach. That's what I do every day. I don't have cliques. I don't have groups. I don't have people that I go associate with. I associate with everybody in this town. Unless you send me an email or somebody calls me or something, which I don't really get to phone calls. It's always in emails. That's what I call keyboard warriors. They'll talk junk to me and all that stuff, but when I meet them out in public, it's not like that. And it shouldn't be like that. But third of all, you asked me what I fear. I fear nothing. The only thing in this world I fear is God taking my kids before he takes me. Because no parent is supposed to do bury their kids.
Mr.
Other than
Mayor,
that, I fear nothing. No, sir. Let me finish what I'm saying. I have always been respectful of you, and I will continue to be respectful of you from now on. It has nothing to do with that. But don't never, ever ask me to resign because I don't agree with what you post out or what you text me. You asked me in this email, told me that I needed to resign if I was scared. I'm not scared of anything. You asked me to resign.
Resign?
That's what you put in the email.
That's
that
not
I needed to resign. Yes, sir, it is. It's most definitely is. I got the email, sir. I can
Get
print it
the
out.
email.
Hell, it's right here on my phone. I
Get
can
it.
print it on the town website if
Get
you'd
it.
like to.
Get it.
I'll sure do it. At least I'll send it to you, and you put it on the town website so you know the kind of crap I have to put up with. Because I do everything. Every day I'm out here talking to everybody, doing everything I can for this town. I love this town. I only moved here 3 years ago, didn't know nobody. I don't have no cliques and groups and all that stuff. I am for everybody. And for you to accuse me and tell me that I'm not, that really went a whole different level with
I
me.
never accused you, Mr. Mayor. Put the numbers on the board.
It'll be put on there.
Put the numbers on the board.
Anybody have anything else?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, sir.
we put rules in effect so there's no back and forth between whoever's speaking and the mayor and the council. And that was done because of one council person. And here we are allowing that same council person to get in a back and forth.
Respectfully, sir,
Former-
I don't
former
want no
council
here.
person.
1 second, please. Respectfully, sir, when I'm accused of something, I don't want it to be hearsay. So that's why I say it right here, right now, where it's in the minutes, it's on TV, it's on anything else. Ain't gonna be no hearsay about it. Y'all heard what I had to say, and that's what I mean, and that's the way I feel, and that's it. Is there anything else? Does anyone have anything else?
I move.
No.
to
Do I
adjourn.
have a motion to adjourn?
I move.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Have any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.